Michelle. Obviously, you know what this stuff was all about, right? It's not a surprise that we showed up tonight.
Almost overnight, she went from a possible witness to a person of interest in the case of a missing mom of 5 from New Canaan.
We see state police, New Canaan police, searching downtown Hartford.
So what's that about? Why is the scene moved to Hartford?
You need to tell us what you know about Jennifer's murder and Forrest Dulles.
The girlfriend in the middle of a bitter and brutal divorce battle.
Stuff you were throwing out, we have. And it's all Jennifer. It belongs to Jennifer. Do you understand?
Turned high-profile murder investigation.
Guys, what happened to Jennifer, Michelle? You're gonna do the right thing, Michelle?
We're taking you inside the trial of Michelle Troconis.
And thanks for joining us once again for Inside the Trial of Michelle Troconis. I'm Shannon Miller. We're getting you ready for another day of testimony. Court set to start here in about an hour. Let's get you up to speed right now. First, we are hearing from investigators about what was seen in the Hartford Police C4 surveillance video from Albany Avenue that led investigators to eventually arresting Michelle Troconis on those tampering with physical evidence charges. Now, Troconis told investigators that that was her in the passenger seat of Forrest Dulles' Ford Raptor pickup truck as he dumped trash bags that contained items that we now know would test positive for Jennifer Dulles' blood. Now, also played for the jury, surveillance video showing a man pulling what appears to be a bloody pillow from one of the garbage cans Forrest Dulles dumped trash in. And earlier testimony from the Dulles nanny makes this video a significant piece of evidence for the prosecution. We'll explain more on that. And then there is that liner missing from the back of Jennifer's Chevy Suburban. Prosecutors allege this video here shows Forrest Dulles dumping the liner near a business on Albany Avenue. But Troconis' attorney questions what, if anything, he can tell from the video about what that object even is. That coming up ahead. But first, let's get you back to NBC Connecticut's Kevin Geis, live in Stanford for us once again. Kevin, people who have been watching up to this point may have been waiting again for that moment, for evidence that explains what Michelle Troconis' alleged role was in all of this. This really is the first time, other than the courtroom, that the jury is seeing Michelle in a piece of evidence.
Absolutely. The video was really the centerpiece of testimony Monday. Specifically, this portion you'll see on your screen. That's of particular interest when it comes to the defendant. Investigators testified Michelle Troconis is seen leaning out of the Ford Raptor and appears to be reaching down toward the brick or pavement. State police describing what they saw that matched the description they were given of Troconis.
So it appears to be a white female. Looks like wearing a short sleeve shirt, and kind of hard to tell. Maybe her hair is in a ponytail, and I could see at least one of her feet on the sidewalk, and her right hand appears to be reaching down toward the brick or pavement.
But in a later interview with investigators, Troconis says she was on the phone the entire time they were along Albany Avenue in Hartford, and she didn't know what Forrest was doing there or why they were on Albany Avenue in Hartford. Shannon.
Yeah, and Kevin, attorney John Schoenhorn has previously told me that Michelle was flicking gum off of her hand while leaning out of the vehicle, but that, of course, has not been brought up to the jury yet. Kevin, in that same camera view, you see something else. Forrest Dulles has an envelope in his hand. Instead of throwing it in a garbage can with the trash bag, you see him walk to the passenger side where there is a storm drain, and he appears to put that envelope in the drain. It's something that caught the attention of investigators.
The fact that I observed that individual throw those things out in the trash receptacle but choose to discard whatever the other object was down the storm drain was interesting to me. And I wanted to try to recover whatever that was.
So Sergeant Butin brought in the Metropolitan District, known as MDC, to pump out whatever was in that storm drain. And for the first time, we are seeing what they found. A FedEx envelope with 2 Connecticut license plates inside. Butin put gloves on and opened up an evidence envelope containing those plates and the envelope and cord and showed them to the jury. He explained what happened when they ran the plates after finding them.
No such plates existed in the Connecticut DMV database.
And so after you received notification that no such plates existed, did you notice anything about the sequence of the letters and numbers themselves?
Well, yeah, we noticed that they were a bit odd. Typically, plates that were issued out like that were would start with 3 numbers and then end with 3 letters. And obviously here you have a letter mixed in with the numbers, so that was odd to us. And to Detective Fitzsimons' credit, he actually, with his gloved hand, started to mess around with some of the characters that looked funny to us. And that's when we realized there was some effort made to alter their appearance. So this T here, when Detective Fitzsimons messed around with it, we could see that the top portion actually wasn't the plate itself. It was some type of blue tape with like a clear adhesive, is the best way I could describe it. So this character is actually a 1. The same here, this was made to be a B, but it's actually a D. And then here we have what is supposed to be a J with the extra material added to make it appear to be a U.
Now, when they removed that alteration, investigators ran the plates again, and then they came back as a canceled set of license plates that were at one point registered to a 2007 Chevy Suburban registered to Fotis Dulos. So, Kevin, you've got these dummied up license plates found in the storm drain. You've got video of Fotis Dulos dropping off those trash bags nearby. Investigators saying that this has the makings of some sort of a cover-up. So what does this mean to them at this point in the investigation?
Right, so of course they are still operating at this point in the investigation under a missing persons investigation, so they're still piecing together exactly what happened. Now, we don't know yet the significance of those license plates or the significance of the 2007 Chevy Suburban. We're hoping that we'll hear that in later testimony, but even jurors are likely still interested in what exactly those license plates mean and why Fotis Dulos allegedly went to the trouble to, instead of throw them into a trash can, put them into a storm drain instead.
Yeah, and to this point, we've never heard maybe potentially how those dummied up license plates could have been used in all of this. One of the big developments, Kevin, in court Monday was video we had heard about, but we have never seen until now. You see a man in a red shirt walk up to a garbage can that investigators say was one of those garbage cans Fotis Dulos dumped trash bags in. He then digs through that trash can and at one point pulls out, according to investigators, a light piece of material with a large blood-like stain and then throws it back into the trash can. Detectives believe it was a pillow with Jennifer's blood on it. But that pillow was never recovered from the trash can. The arrest warrant for Michelle Troconis mentions this video of the man and says that they later identified and interviewed the man who was homeless. He told investigators he had seen a bloody pillow, but he had not taken it. As far as we know, from what has been released by police, that pillow described by the homeless man has never been found. This is significant because you may remember from the Dulos nanny, Lauren Almeida's testimony, that the camping pillows that were typically stored on these shelves here inside of Jennifer's garage were missing. She testified that she had cleaned the garage just days before Jennifer's disappearance and that those pillows were there at that point. Now, the jury also got to see this surveillance video of Fotis Dulos dumping what appears to be a vehicle floor mat. Investigators believe that it was missing that WeatherTech liner from Jennifer's Chevy Suburban. But on cross-examination, attorney John Schoenhorn pressed Sergeant Butin about how he could really tell what that object even was. You can see it's a little grainy there. Now, it was never recovered to confirm that indeed it was the liner.
From the video you saw, you could not tell whether that rolled up item was carpeting or plastic or rubber or any particular material. Is that right?
It could have been anything. It could have been anything. There's no way to actually ever know unless I actually went there and put my hands on it.
And although Mr. McGinnis kept talking about WeatherTech, it could have been any brand of any kind of plastic or rubber mat, right?
Yeah, that's accurate.
So it seems, like potential strong evidence for investigators. It's a white object covered in what appears to be red. Maybe this bloody pillow. It's a black rectangular or square object that could look or appear like that WeatherTech liner to investigators. But Kevin, without that actual pillow and without the actual liner, could this potentially cast some doubt for the jury?
It absolutely could. Ultimately, it is going to be up to the jurors to sort of cross that reasonable doubt threshold. And of course, prosecutors, if they don't have the pillow and the WeatherTech liner, of course, they're going to show any other evidence that they possibly can to lead the jury to believe that what you see in the video were those pillows and that WeatherTech liner. But of course, the defense, without having them physically, has a strong case to point out that maybe it wasn't, could have been something else, could have been something he had in the back of the Raptor anyway. So ultimately, it's going to be up to the jurors to cross that reasonable doubt threshold.
And we later learned just about the challenges that those investigators faced when it came to try to collecting what was in those trash bags. Now, the prosecution brought in a number of investigators from both state police and Harvard police who were involved again in collecting the video, viewing it, and getting those images into the hands of lead detectives on the case. That includes Joshua Quent, who spent 6 years in Harvard's C4, the command center where analysts view video from about 1,000 cameras placed all over the capital city. He spoke about a special program used called BriefCam, which allows investigators to single out certain vehicles. They used it here to flag black pickup trucks and eventually were able to find and track Fotis Dulos' Ford Raptor, again, which Michelle told investigators she was riding in.
You're going through this video. Were you looking at all the trucks that were black and pickup trucks?
Yes, that's where we started.
Okay, and then you started, so were you able to narrow it further?
Yes.
How were you able to do that?
Once we started to see the same trucks stopping and putting garbage bags in random garbage cans.
Now, the prosecution also called the state police detective who was shown the video and collected by that C4 team. He felt like he had to take immediate action after watching it.
I notified my supervisor, Matt Gonzalez, about what I'd seen, specifically the trash getting dropped off in multiple City of Hartford garbage cans in order to get an evidence collection team to go and access those or seize the contents.
When you notified your sergeant, well, when did you do that?
Right after I saw it.
Were you still physically at C4 when you called him? Why did you do that right away?
Just in the event that the trash got picked up, got meddled with, I don't know. I wanted to have someone out there as soon as possible.
Now, after that was done, you will remember this scene here in the case. An evidence collection team, dozens of law enforcement members descended on Albany Avenue and pulled bags of evidence out of those trash cans. Now, the testimony hasn't gotten there yet, but we learned in the arrest warrant that a lot of those items tested positive for Jennifer Dulos' DNA. Testing on some of those garbage bags showed DNA evidence of Fotis Dulos. One of them showed evidence of Michelle Troconis. Her attorney is set to speak later on in the trial about how little of her DNA, according to him, was actually found on that one trash bag. But according to one of our analysts, it's by chance that the bags were not picked up by trash trucks as quickly as they usually are.
It was a holiday weekend in Hartford.
Yep.
And because of that, the trash collection got staggered a day off, and it helped the state police when they all went after they get all the video and everything to go down there. It saved a lot of evidence because of the holiday weekend, and DPW in Hartford staggers off a day of the trash collection.
And so, Kevin, taking it now back to Brett Atmore's testimony, talked about that urgency that ultimately paid off for investigators. They were able to get some of that physical evidence that Fotis Dulos appeared to be throwing away. But at that point, remember, police didn't know what they had. We heard from Sergeant Ventresca's testimony and that this was still a missing persons investigation. Take us back again, kind of where we were in that part of the case.
Right. Again, we continue throughout the entire trial so far to hear the word urgency. And of course, at this point, they are still operating under a missing persons investigation. So multiple different state police investigators have testified that it was all about time. They were trying to move as quickly as they possibly could and spare no time trying to figure out exactly what happened to Jennifer Dulos and where she was, if she was still alive at the time. So, of course, they're moving, they're operating as though she is still missing. So, of course, time is of the essence. And we continue to hear testimony about that.
All right, and Kevin, the day started with some more motions from the defense and strong words from attorney John Schoenhorn. He took issue with a comment Sergeant Ventresca made on Friday about Albany Avenue being a high crime area.
It was unnecessarily introducing racial bias into this case, because it's also true that right down a block or two further is the Dunkin' Donuts Stadium, where the Hartford Yard Goats play AA baseball almost every single week. So now we've had to get into the fact that when he made that statement, it suggested that no white rich guy from the suburbs would have any reason to be driving on Route 44 when it also happens to be the main thoroughfare for people who work in downtown Hartford.
The only person in this courtroom that is injecting race into this proceeding is the defense. The state of Connecticut did not ask the jury to draw any sort of racial inference from the fact that it's a high crime area.
Now, the defense eventually got to cross-examine Sergeant Ventresca, who explained his comment.
So when you use the term that that portion of Route 44 was a, quote, high crime area, was it because there was a Jamaican restaurant there?
No, it's referring to the city of Hartford.
The city is, okay.
Yes.
All right, then around the break for lunch, there was yet another potential issue with one of the jurors. Kevin, I was sitting in the courtroom for that. But what I really saw here, at least from that juror, was a moment of honesty and keeping this entire case accountable.
Absolutely. So that juror ultimately decided that he needed to bring to the court's attention that he recognized the name that came up in testimony, and that happened to also be the next witness that was coming in. But the judge ultimately decided that because he hadn't had contact with the witness in over 20 years and he likely wouldn't recognize him, and he swore that he could remain impartial for the rest of the case, ultimately the judge decided that he could stay. Shannon.
All right, Kevin, guys, thanks for the very latest. Much more to come on Inside the Trial of Michelle Troconis. Coming up, we'll talk about this video on Albany Avenue, even more what it means for the defense with our legal analyst, Jim Bergen. Stay with us.
I want to emphasize, this is not the trial of Fotis Dulos. It's the trial of Michelle Troconis.
Well, Attorney John Schoenhorn telling the court ahead of the testimony on Monday that he's being put in the position of having to defend Fotis Dulos, even though he isn't his client. Schoenhorn saying there's a guilt by association happening here because Michelle Troconis was living with Fotis Dulos at the time. I'm joined once again by one of our legal analysts. Joining us throughout the trial, defense attorney Jim Bergen. Jim, so glad to have you back. I want to start with that point that John Schoenhorn is making to the court. We're just finally starting to see and hear Michelle Troconis' name come up in the testimony. It's really been all about Fotis Dulos up to this point. Does Schoenhorn actually have to, in a way, kind of represent or talk about Fotis Dulos in order to defend his actual client?
He doesn't have to, but that would mean he has to make some pretty hard choices. Because they're charging a murder, he's tempted, as many defense lawyers are. Defense lawyers are tempted to kind of keep doing anything they can that helps. But he's tempted to say, well, if you can't prove a murder, I'm off. He's got to concede there was a murder. In fact, he wants to concede, if he can, how crazy, manipulative, and dangerous this guy was, because that's what explains the entire trial. Right now, the judge is excellent. The judge understands, look, this is a complicated mess. I've got people trying to vindicate Jennifer, people trying to vindicate the police who are doing a great job trying to address the panic. And on the other hand, that's not what the trial's about. The trial is about, did Michelle Troconis, who this guy's dating and trying to present himself as a great guy, was she in on any of this stuff? That's what the whole case is about. And the judge is keeping it firm. He gets what's going on, and he's trying to be very patient and trying to keep things clear. He's doing a really good job. But Schoenhorn is correct that sort of technically he's having to defend against a murder, but thematically, because what I teach when I teach how to try cases, you got to stay on theme at all times. Right. And his theme ought to be, yeah, he's crazy, he's a murderer.
And we're finally getting to the Albany Avenue video where Michelle is finally first seen as a part of evidence. It's essential to this case. Let's talk about how this video evidence plays into the specific charges, again, of the tampering with physical evidence?
Well, it sure looks to me and to everybody of guilt by association, because there she is, right with the murderer who's destroying evidence. Wow, that's horrible. Except, think about that. If he's trying to go out with her and he knows she's a family person, why would he be bringing her in on those facts? And why, if she knew about it, would he bother to bring her? She's not adding any value. She's sitting there. She thinks she's going out with this great guy who presents himself as a great guy. Remember, he turns on a dime. And we already saw that, and from the other witnesses. So this is a guy who knows how to control and present himself. And so ultimately, yes, we are proving, oh my God, this evidence is getting thrown out. But what's Michelle Troconis got to do with that? She's sitting around.
Yeah, her story is that she was on the phone, with one of her friends along that ride. Didn't know what was going on at the time. And John Schoenhorn has even told me that she was flicking gum off of her hand when you see her reaching out. I want to talk specifically about the DNA evidence. This has not come up in court just yet, but what was found on those trash bags? Attorney John Schoenhorn wanted to tell me yesterday that what's been presented so far by investigators in the arrest warrant is that there was a DNA match to Michelle Troconis on at least 2 of those trash bags. He tells me he plans to clarify to the court that it is only 1 trash bag that they're talking about. And I'm going to quote him because this is what he wanted to reiterate, that there were just 3 cells, emphasized 21 trillionths of a gram of partial DNA on 1 trash bag that's consistent to the Troconis family. So how crucial is it when we get to that cross-examination for Schoenhorn to drive home what he says is an extremely small amount of DNA that we're talking about?
I think that, frankly, misses the point because he's now making it seem like that would be a real problem. The fact that he's already established that these are garbage bags. The guy's selling a house. A lot of contractors, he suggests through his questioning, use other people's bins, and there's only 3 stops where he's dumping stuff. It doesn't end. It's on a highway that everybody takes from Avon Mountain into the city of Hartford. There's nothing weird about it, and he's already established that. The idea that she would have her DNA on it, big whoop. Who cares, the DNA? But, you know, he's falling, I think, in that regard, into the temptation most defense lawyers have, which is fight everything. Instead, I think he ought to already work with what he's been doing, which is this is not about Michelle Troconis. There's garbage bags getting tossed out by a contractor who's selling a house and doesn't have a dumpster at the house, so he's got to throw out the garbage bags.
And had asked Michelle Troconis, according to what she told investigators earlier that day, to come help him clean up that home because he was going to show it the next day. He asked her to bring cleaning items over to that Mountain Spring Road property, including trash bags. So, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the prosecution needs to prove that Michelle Troconis knew what was happening in order to get that conviction, at least on the conspiracy to commit.
They have to prove that to get a conviction of anything in this trial. If she doesn't know that this guy has already committed a murder, she did nothing wrong at all. Now, it's a big lift. Why? Because there's a lot of people just want to vindicate that poor mother of 5. That's a good instinct. There's a lot of people who want to vindicate the police, who did a great job quickly responding and getting all this evidence so they could prove that Fotis did it. But none of that really relates to what you just said is the whole point. What's going on in her mind? In her mind, she's dating this guy who knows she's a family person. She's not going to date somebody who kills the mother of his 5 children. That's crazy.
Being a mother herself, too, you wonder how that plays into
and all over her daughter and all over her parents. She's a family woman. She's not going to be in on a murder. But the judge gets it. Everything that I've said right now, the judge gets, and he is teaching the jury. He's even teaching the lawyers. Chill out. Keep making your objections. I got this.
All right. We got more coming up from you in just a moment. More on Inside the Trial of Michelle Troconis. Jim and I will next talk about what comes up next now that the Albany Avenue video has been played for the jury. We'll be right back. All right, we are back now with attorney Jim Bergen on Inside the Trial, Michelle Troconis. I want to talk more now about where all of this is headed. The jury has seen that Albany Avenue video. we, the media, know what comes next in all this. I remember the day, just like yesterday, where all of a sudden we heard law enforcement, dozens of them had descended along Albany Avenue to do this mass canvass. So at this point, where's the jury stand and all this? They're about to be dumped even more information.
Well, everything that's happening right now shows great police work. They're getting all this stuff against Fotis. Thank God. But Fotis isn't around. This isn't his trial. And all the people who love Jennifer and the mother of 5 children, they're all rooting for this stuff. But none of it deals with Michelle Troconis. And the problem is, fortunately, this judge has got a real good grip of that very problem, and he's trying to keep everything tame and then allow, ultimately, the jury to focus on the only thing that matters, what's going on in her head. So the fact that all this is going on with the police, that's great, great police work. You got Fotis, but we don't have Fotis. So let's just get it in, I guess.
Yeah. And again, it'll be interesting to see what they present next as far as what was found there. And you got to think about what Jennifer's family was thinking, too, when they learned what was found along Albany Avenue. Yep. That wraps up our exclusive Inside the Trial Michelle Troconis streaming special. Thanks for watching once again. We will see you back next time.